he saw the accident occur and thought God put him there for that day for a reason. He was the first man on the scene, pulling me from underneath the wreck. I was bleeding from my face, from my nose, my eyes, my ears, and my mouth.
Wow.
And I was dead.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Carganilla Online Variety Entertainment Podcast. Here's your host, Paul Carganilla.
Hello and welcome to COVE. This is the online variety show in which we aim to both entertain and inspire our podcast listeners and YouTube viewers through a variety of art forms, including music, storytelling, special guest interviews, and more. I'm your host, Paul Carganilla, and with this podcast, as I've mentioned from the very start, my goal is to provide our audience with true, entertaining, and inspiring variety. A mixed bag, a jambalaya of offerings to watch and listen to, a wide range that excites you to see a new episode drop into your subscription feed every Tuesday because, in true Forrest Gump style, you never know what you're going to get. So far, in the course of our young podcast here, we have met and heard from actors, musicians, songwriters, poets, novelists, and today, our guest is not only an author and spiritual fitness trainer, but a walking miracle who survived being hit in the face by a full-sized SUV. But before we meet him, let's pull the cart back behind the horse and say hello to producer Craig Jackman. Producer Craig.
Welcome. Hey. It's great to be here, and I'm very, very excited to hear from today's guest.
Yes, as am I. And today, as we're recording this, it is Labor Day. So happy Labor Day to you, Producer Craig.
Happy Labor Day to you. It doesn't feel like this is a labor anyways. This is more of fun. But yes, to those people who are out there and honoring Labor Day, bless you and thank you for, I'm going to say your service, because, you don't think about it. Waiters, waitresses, people who do service jobs, to all who give service to others, thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Producer Craig. And we do celebrate the day and all of the contributions from the workers in our community by taking the day off, as it is recognized as a holiday. And so we're here at home on a Monday and able to find some time to speak with some really interesting people. And so today I'm very excited about our guest. He is a 5-time award-winning author of 4 books, a 3-time documented medical miracle, 2-time near-death experiencer, and a self-proclaimed big-headed know-it-all. His certification is pending, according to him. He is the author of Within the Portal, a near-death experience memoir and guide to spiritual awakening. And the top of the back cover of the book reads, get this, Craig, on June 19th, 2013, I was killed, dead in the street, mangled, bloody, capital letters, dead. Life can go from light to dark in an instant. Very excited for this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
Please join me in welcoming to the Carganilla Online Variety Entertainment Podcast, author Krishnanand.
Thank you for inviting me. Nice to see you.
So happy to have you here on the show. Now, as I prepped you, I warned you, we do a little icebreaker intro, our 60 seconds or less introduction. But since your story is so unique, I'm going to put a little caveat on it. As you mentioned, this event happened on June 19th, 2013, that I'm guessing changed the course of the rest of your life. Let's get to know who you were before that moment. And can you, I'll get the timer ready here, tell us everything anyone could possibly know about you before that date in 60 seconds or less. Start whenever you're ready.
Well, I think this is the relevant part is in many ways I was like any man. I was a single father. I owned a business. I went from owning my own construction company, to being a private practice counselor, top of the service industry, helping people solve problems and issues in crisis. But prior to any of this, so since my childhood, I was already deeply involved as a scholar in mysticism, spirituality, and religions. So unlike many people you may hear from the NDE community, the near-death experience community, I was already very spiritually awake and involved since my youth, since I was a child. And so instead of this thing being a catalyst that really changed me from being somewhat atheist or agnostic to something spiritual, I was already there. And so there is some theories that it's quite possible that some of the extraordinary magnitudes and features of my NDE and my life going on since then was brought about because of my expertise in these spiritual fields, and not just knowledge, not just a scholar, but a practicing practitioner of spiritual methods and practices and paths, from everything from Western ones, from Kabbalah and Judaism, mystical Judaism, to alchemy. I'm a certified master alchemist, to ceremonial magic, which I'm a 3rd-degree ceremonial magician in, but also the paths of yoga, the Oriental ones of I Ching, and Taoism and Zen as well. So I was already very proficient in all these modalities and all these methods, and very much in love with them.
Wow. I think you clocked in at 90 seconds. Great job. I would love to touch on...
Not bad for a big-headed know-it-all.
You're doing great right off the bat. That's very interesting to me because I read all of that on your bio, and I just assumed that you gained all of these skills and all the knowledge after the event and after your experience. But we can touch on that in just a little bit. But first, before we do, can you tell us about that day? How it happened, what this event was that occurred on June 19th, 2013?
Sure. And if you'll pardon me, I may get a little bit emotional, even as you were reading the back cover of the book. It's very personal and very intense, and much of it was tragic, much of it was profound, but either way, it affects me in a very deep way. And so that particular day, now understand that, as I said, I was already involved in mysticism and spirituality all my life. And so my life is what I called a string of pearls and a crown of thorns. String of pearls because it's been one phenomenal event after another throughout my life, and yet crown of thorns because it sets me apart from much of the conventional society. And so that particular day, I'm in my office as a private practice counselor, and I get 3 clients that reschedule, which is kind of rare. It happens, but 3 in a row back to back. Suddenly I went from having a tight back-to-back schedule all day to having 3.5 hours or so to kill, 4 hours to kill. So I decided to go to my motorcycle, which I rode to work that day, and ride to the clinic up the street and get a physical that I was overdue for. For the first time in 7 years in that office, I turned right instead of left, and to this day, I don't know why. The left-hand turn was quiet side streets into town. The right-hand turn was a boulevard with some intersections and etc. For whatever reason, I turned right instead of left that day, and I don't know why. And 3 blocks later, I was, as you said, hit in the face by a truck, killed instantly. Dead, mangled, and bloody. So here's the little miracles, not little, bona fide, certified, undeniable miracles that began to occur immediately. On one corner, not 40, 50 yards from the accident scene, was a pastor on the phone talking to his daughter, talking to somebody on his cell. He was there only because his daughter persuaded him to take her to the tire shop to get tires on her car that day, and he was resistant the whole time. Because of this, he saw the accident occur and thought God put him there for that day for a reason. There's the emotions. He was the first man on the scene pulling me from underneath the wreck. I was bleeding from my face, from my nose, my eyes, my ears, and my mouth.
Wow.
And I was dead. He began reading my last rites. As a pastor, he felt that God put him there for a reason. On the other corner, literally on the other corner, there was a tire shop and there was a Jack in the Box restaurant. And the Jack in the Box restaurant, at the front of the drive-through line, were 2 paramedics getting lunch. Had they been in the back of that line, I would not be here.
Wow.
Had they wanted tacos instead of burgers that day, I wouldn't be here. They were on the scene in moments. Bring my body back to life. Now, I choose my words very carefully. I say my body back to life because my consciousness, my spirit, catapulted. I didn't have the OBE, out-of-body experience where I floated around and hovered around. I saw this happening and I bolted. I catapulted out of there into the other side, a dimension of reality that I now refer to as the portal. So my body stayed in a coma for 9 days. Now, when the paramedics started to treat me, they realized that I was in a stage 3 Glasgow coma, which is the most severest form of coma that you can be in. There's 2 others below that, but the stage 3 is synonymous with death. Literally, you ask any EMT what they do with a stage 3, and they say, we shrug their shoulders and say, it's up to God now. There's nothing they can do. It's synonymous with death. I stayed in this coma for 9 days, and here the miracles continue. I woke up on my birthday. I did not know who I was, did not know my name, did not know what a hospital was. It was like my identity had been completely deleted. Now understand something. There's a difference between amnesia and what was happening for me. Because the supernatural aspect of this is clinically, I'm in a hospital, I'm in a stage 3 Glasgow coma, then I woke up, then I had a DAI, diffuse accidental brain injury, which is the most severe brain injury known to science. And so that's the clinical side. But on the phenomenal side, I'm having this otherworldly experience. While my spirit and consciousness return to my body on my birthday, on 9 days after my 9-day coma, it was only partially there. 70% or more of my consciousness was still on the other side. So I was having a lot of trouble recognizing the difference between what was happening in the world and what was happening in the spiritual level, because I had the lines completely blurred and I could not differentiate between the two. It took me quite a while to kind of start to orient. I was in the hospital for 28 days. And that entire time, and for the next 4 years, I hovered between both realms. When I was awake in the world, then I was about 30% here and present consciously. But when I was asleep, so I would still remain 70%, kind of more on the other side, gaining intellectual wisdom and insights. And when I was asleep in the world, when I would go to sleep at night, which was a lot in the beginning of the days of the accident, then I was completely awake and aware while within the portal. Now, while I was there during my 9-day coma, there's a lot of standard features that you hear about with NDE, such as life review, the life passing before your eyes in an instant kind of phenomena.
Right.
The difference was that I was in communication with what I now call akashic agents. You could say angels, you could say guardian angels, etc. And I was offered something different for my life review. I was offered, I assumed, because of much of the mystical work I'd done prior, was that I was offered to have a life review of multiple lifetimes.
Okay.
And so I said yes. So what was displayed before me like a cinema, when like an instant upload, was multiple lifetimes over thousands of years that I was able to see like a cinema. My request to this phenomena was, if I'm going to have this multiple life review, I'd like to view lives only that have to do with my soul's journey towards spirituality and divinity. I'm not interested in any lifetime that's just material and doesn't have any place in that, my soul's journey towards spiritual perfection. And so I was granted that. I also got a life preview where I was able to see, and this is pretty standard, too many people don't remember it with their NDE, but it's fairly standard operation within the NDE experience that you get a life preview as well. You can kind of get a foreshadowing of what can come. The reason for this is because spiritual forces want you to learn from your past and also learn, like Ebenezer Scrooge saw the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, right? When he saw the Christmas future, he was like, oh my God, I better change my ways. Mm-hmm. So life preview will give you the moment of introspection, be able to see, oh my God, I'm going in the wrong direction. Now, as you pointed out, and as I mentioned in this introduction myself, that part of the problem, you could say, for me was that I didn't feel like I wanted to change direction at all. I was already living a spiritual life. That's all I was focused on. I was dedicating my life to my spiritual progress and had been for many, many years. So it didn't really change my direction or give me a paradigm shift in my consciousness or my aim in life. What it did was emphasize it even stronger, give me more verifiable evidence towards it. And it basically confirmed that all I'd been seeking and pursuing throughout my lifetime was absolutely confirmed. So I focused on recovering from these massive traumas, which again is, you could say I'm a 3-time medical miracle. The chief of brain neurology, UCLA, studied me for 3 days. He found out about my case and invited me to see him. Studied me for 3 days. When I called him later and I said, so what'd you find out? And he said, I don't know how you're doing what you're doing. I can't go on record and say this because I'm a physician, but you're a medical miracle. I have no idea how you're doing what you're doing.
Wow.
So we want to learn from you. And I said, I don't want to teach anybody anything. I'm trying to survive this.
Yeah.
So there began and continued the arduous struggle of being able to retrain myself to speak, walk, function, remember who my family members were, remember who the girl that I'd been with for 10 years was. And again, we're not talking amnesia. It was like I recognized them as souls, but I did not recognize them as people in this lifetime because my perception of lifetimes was so blurred. I could not differentiate between past lives and this life very well. So this went on for quite a while. Any questions so far?
I didn't want to break your flow, but I am curious about the portal. Can you describe experiencing the other side?
Sure. For me, it was a timeless, spaceless dimension. There was no, now try to imagine this. I had no desire. There's nothing I wanted. I wasn't in bliss, but neither was I in any anguish. I was completely peaceful and content. The only thing I wanted, the only desire I had was to please the divine love that was there. Whatever she wanted, I get this female presence from it, that whatever she wanted was all I wanted to do. It was expressed to me that I would be returning soon. And again, I was going to do whatever was there. And so I wasn't experiencing much white light, an angelic presence, or passed on loved ones. And I asked about this. I say air quotes because I wasn't like communicating like we are now.
Right.
It's more like a telepathic communication. I wondered things, which just basically was just kind of there, and answers were automatically provided in there, and just knowledge was already accessible. And so, yeah.
You mentioned timeless, spaceless. Are you seeing anything when you mention the akashic agents, or are you recognizing that other energies are coming into your presence, or is it just an all-enveloping understanding?
I'm sensing they are spiritual personalities.
Okay.
They are perfect and divine and caring and loving. And so I'm not sensing things in the same way that we do here in this material dimension with vision and hearing. And yet all of those senses are present in their own subtle way. So I have command of all of that, and yet not in the conventional way that we know it here. And it's unfortunately impossible for me to describe what's taking place there in this third world, in this fourth dimensional world here.
So you wouldn't be able to like paint a picture of like what you're seeing because it's all just an entirely different sense.
Entirely different sense. And again, when I say timeless and spaceless, it's not, again, like a three-dimensional physical world that we have here. So it is a dimension, but it's not, doesn't have the confinements and the parameters that we know of here. And so I was very aware of myself and of this celestial space around me. But again, it wasn't in any way that can be described in the material phenomena. So it was very ethereal.
And when you describe being in the presence of the maker or the creator energy, you described her, was that a separate energy in your sense from you and the akashic agents, or did it feel like that energy was just all enveloping and everything was part of that?
Very interesting question, and I like that. That's something that's really important to answer to, so thanks for asking that. Definitely separate from me, and yet also imbued and fused along with me. And separate on its own because it is divine and I'm not. So, and I would say that the maker, this presence, would be divine love in a personified form, in the sense that it has personality and heart and feeling, not just some blank slate that just is a feeling of love. It has a quality that, again, for me was very female, very maternal, and very, very intimate. And the powerful aspect of this divine presence was more male. And so the Akashic agents were actually extensions of this divine love. So they were separate and joined at the same time. They were exactly that, separate and joined at the same time. They were one and yet also completely separate. So the Akashic agents were basically kind of communicating to me that we are extensions of the God power. We are the extensions of God, of the divine love. We're not the divine love itself. That is absolute perfection, divinity, and that's beyond us, and it's beyond you. But we're an extension of that, and that's what you're interacting with.
That makes me think of, I was raised in the Lutheran church, and we have the Trinity, and just talking to people from other religions who just couldn't comprehend, well, how are there three parts of God, and how are they separate but part of the same? It kind of just makes me think of that. It reminds me of that whole conversation I've had so many times in my life.
I think that's exactly the same concept, because only see in the material world, there's a you're there and I'm here. But in the divine world, it can be simultaneously separate and joined together at once. And so the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, the Trinity, is combined. That is one entity in three forms. And I think that's a great way to put it, that divine love, I'm experiencing it in three forms. There's the divine love source, the be-all, end-all, absolute top, premier, top of it all. That is, and everything else is just an extension of that. And yet again, they're also combined in one. Father, Son, Holy Ghost are one entity in three forms.
And so as you're moving forward, you're healing, and you mentioned that you felt like 70% of your consciousness was still on the portal side. Are you going back and forth, or is it a simultaneous experience?
Simultaneous. And let me give you an example. So there was a time I was living in Washington for a while. I went to Puget Sound. I was told by other doctors that I was never going to survive, that I was going to be a vegetable. When my family showed up at the hospital, when I was still in a coma, they were met by two doctors and a priest. The emotions come because I can't stand being the source of pain for the people that I love or anything. So it's not that I tear up because of my pain and sorrow. It's because I don't want to be a source and see the people that I cared about, that I was a source of this pain and fear for them. When they showed up at the hospital, they were met by two doctors and a priest. That's not a good sign.
Right.
They were told, if he ever wakes up, which by the way, no one ever has from this condition. But if he does, he will be scarred for life. You see the scars on his face, and look at me now. And he'll be a vegetable. He probably will not be able to take care of himself at all. When I woke up on my birthday 9 days later, I didn't have a scratch on my face, not one. I can show you the pictures of me in the hospital. I've got abrasions and blood all over my face and an oxygen mask. And yet 9 days later, there's a picture of me with birthday candles, because they came and wished me happy birthday, and I don't have a scratch on me. So it was simultaneous. My struggle was that I was having trouble differentiating between the two. So for an example, as I lived in the Puget Sound for a while, I remember one time that I was in my car, right? And now, in some ways, you'll relate to this. Say, oh, that happens to me too. I'm in my car, and my phone rings. And I answer the phone. It's my son. Prior to this, let me back up for a moment. I'm in the car, and I have no idea why I'm there. Why I'm in the car, when I get in the car, where I was going. And this would happen often, because my consciousness was within the portal, was in the other side. And so I'm functioning in there, and I'm having this full conversations and experience there, and my life is very active, and I'm conscious there. And yet I would sometimes bounce back into the world and suddenly be like, well, how did I get here? So I was kind of teleporting between both dimensions often, and yet functioning. So while I'm in the portal, in the car, my body is driving the car, and I'm going where I'm going. And then when I come back into my body, I'm like, why am I in the car? Where am I going? I have no idea. I assume I'm going to the grocery store or something. I have no idea. My phone rings. It's my son. He says, hey, Dad, I'm landing at 3:45. Tell me where to... Oh, my God, that's where I'm on my way to the airport to look at my son.
Right.
Good thing he called. So this went on intensely for several years, where I was, again, the lines were blurred. I'm functioning in the world. I'm able to, take care of myself and eat and all those kind of things. But I'm kind of faking it in many ways, where I'm kind of relating to the physical and material world that we all know of, because I'm trying to manage it all while I'm still 70% of my consciousness is in this ethereal state and in the spiritual level, in the spiritual dimension.
And you said it took about 10 years to finally feel like you had control of everything and you're back again?
Well, now understand that for the entire time, I'm still functioning. I'm able to write, get my books done. I mean, I'm functioning and on a pretty high level, considering how serious the conditions were. And yes, the kind of standard operating procedures for severe NDE, near-death experience, is 7 years. It takes 7 years for your spirit, your soul, your consciousness to stabilize and settle within your physical body. And when you think back when you were born, you don't have a lot of cognizant memories and thoughts up to 7 years old, but from 7 years old when you start to have an identity, right? This is because it takes 7 years for the soul and the conscious to settle within the material plane and become kind of stable with it.
Interesting.
So in that sense, yes, I was coexisting with both, and I still am in many ways. The difference was when it was very severe and intense, it was hard for me to differentiate between which one was taking place at any given moment. I was kind of existing in both. It was kind of confusing, you know.
Sure.
But again, I was functioning at a pretty high level. There's the chief of brain neurology at UCLA saying, like, how are you doing this? How are you functioning? How are you? I mean, I was doing very well. If you look back on what I was actually performing and doing, again, driving a car, and I didn't just move to Washington. I packed all my stuff. I moved my old thing. I continued with my private practice and counseling people. I continued doing writing books and publishing them, going on interviews and doing all these kind of things. And yet, while I'm doing those things, I'm partially fully aware. I'm partially there's that paradox. Partially and fully aware of another dimension taking place all the time.
Do you regularly still, or did you for a while still consult with that, like in some form of meditation? If you ever felt lost or you needed guidance, is that available for you to tap into?
It was pretty constant for the first 4 years. And then I started to be able to turn the volume down so I could function a little bit better in the material world. And again, it was just to turn the volume down a little bit. And so I still to this day access it at will. And so it wasn't just like when I'm in crisis. My relationship with the akashic agents and the divine love that's present there is an ongoing thing. And what I realized, and what we all need to realize, is that we can all do this anytime we want. We don't have to have a near-death experience to do this.
Right.
That our consciousness has the capacity to connect to divine love and to connect to akashic agents for consult and counsel and guidance anytime we truly want it. We know how to do it and when to. And it's really about becoming vulnerable. You know, as Christ said, suffer little children unto me, for unto them is the kingdom of God. What he's reminding us is that when we become innocent like children, when we forget our egos and our mindsets and our brands, that's when we become more vulnerable and raw and honest. So I pretty much live within access of these dimensions all the time. And again, it sounds like kind of like having a permanent flashback, and it's nothing that severe. It's very joyful, it's very blissful, but it's also kind of dark at times because I'm regularly reminded that I'm a soul having a human experience, not the other way around. Right. And so many spiritualists begin to feel that we're trapped in this material phenomena. And what we really want to do is experience nothing but the spiritual phenomena. So that's the kind of the gray lines that makes it hard to kind of hover between both.
You mentioned, I just want to rewind real quick back to the reel of the, not just your life flashing before your eyes, but several lifetimes. And what kind, can you describe when they showed you that? Was it like watching a movie, or was it just a knowledge that was instilled within you?
The way that I can put it and often do is it was like instant download. Okay. So it was simultaneous. Again, we're talking about this paradoxical experience of having multiple things happening at once. And so it was cinematic. It was definitely like a movie, like a film being displayed before me, and yet it was instant. So basically, I was seeing multiple lifetimes in their entirety, or even just sometimes just the highlights that were relevant to my spiritual journey, my soul's journey, condensed into moments, and yet it's also kind of like having the cliff notes where when you just have this full awareness and knowledge of the entire span of it, what it meant and what it came to, what transpired during it. And so it's definitely a paradoxical experience where it's instant and simultaneously you're being able to watch it being displayed in the long form. So it's instant. It's both.
And have the brain experts and the doctors, have you guys had conversations about, you know, you watch the NDE TV specials, and they've got both sides. They've got the people that have experienced it and the people who say it's a bunch of hokey. But they like to always talk about, well, the lack of oxygen to the brain, or the injury and the swelling will create these feelings and these visions. Have you had conversations with doctors about that?
Of course. And over the years, and even, of course, I doubted my sanity. I'm wondering, am I having a metaphysical experience? Am I having a supernatural phenomena? Or am I brain damaged and crazy?
Yeah.
There's definitely argument for both. And what helped me endure and cope with that and come to the conclusion that I'm not just having a delusional experience is that there's a stack of evidence to this day that I'm rational, logical, reasonable. If you read my book, this isn't just some half-baked concoction of strange experiences. I'm an award-winning writer for a reason. I know what I'm doing, and I work hard at my craft. Same with counseling people. It's not an easy thing to do if you're half-baked. So there's a stack of evidence daily that reminds me when I'm having some of those doubts that I may be just brain damaged, delusional, that I'm rational, logical, and reasonable. And again, keep in mind that I was a spiritual mystic long before this ever occurred. So everything that I'd read about and studied for all my life and what I experienced throughout my life, this was just another layer of it. So it was confirming all that. So it wasn't like all new stuff. I was like suddenly catapulted into these phenomena that was surprising to me. It was, these are things that are spoke about, taught for many, many years, for eons. And so we have to be able to differentiate. And I can tell you, as a behavioral specialist, I can tell you that one of the signs when I'm dealing with people that are mentally unstable is one of the things that's kind of a relief is when they start to doubt their own sanity. Let me tell you, excuse the term, but crazy people, they don't. They think everybody else is crazy.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Listen, the most severe pathological individuals, God bless them, they're convinced that they're fine, everyone else is damaged. So when I have clients that are doubting their own sanity, as a professional, I'm kind of relieved. I'm like, that's a good sign that they're doubting their own sanity, because that means that they might be okay. And they will be in the long run if they work at it, you know?
Yes, it's a quote from a movie, I think maybe in the 90s or 2000s. It was a movie about schizophrenia, and I think it was Anthony Hopkins' character had a quote, "Oh, crazy people don't wonder if they're crazy," or
That's
something
right.
like that. So tell me, so you obviously you mentioned you were writing books before this experience happened, and I see on your bio here you've got 5 books out, right? Total?
Yes.
A Stone's Throw, which is a memoir of a dope fiend. Project Addiction, the complete guide to using, abusing, and recovering from addictive drugs and behaviors. Road Games, bizarre stories and curious tales. Project Addiction Counselor, and your book that we're talking about today, which is Within the Portal, the near-death experience memoir and guide to spiritual awakening. So with those other books, I just have to ask, did you struggle with drugs and addiction before?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I was in that field. I mean, I became a counselor and was private practice and was innovating in that field. And so I was keynote speaking and touring the country and doing things that had never been done before and helping people in a whole new way, which is what the book was about. And so, again, yes, prior to the NDE event and this paradigm shift in my life, I was already an author, an award-winning author, because I had some skill, and I was writing about very different topics. Now, I've always been involved with the spiritual level of things, but again, my first memoir and these other self-help books, those were my career. Those are the things that I was doing. So, those are my areas.
Awesome. And so tell us more about Within the Portal. If somebody wanted to pick this up, obviously it's in the title of the book, the near-death experience memoir and guide to spiritual awakening. But what can somebody expect when they pick up this book?
Yeah, you try to tell all that in the title, and I think that the memoir and guide to spiritual awakening is again blended together because I could not explain what was taking place with me on a supernatural level without explaining how those things work. And this is where my lifetime of study and scholarship within spiritual studies came to play, because I'm able to explain things because I've been studying them all my life. Now, I'm not just talking about some kind of new age concepts. I'm talking about the authentic, original scriptural texts and knowledges that have been handed down to us from sages and enlightened masters since the beginning of time. And so what you can expect from this is just that, a cathartic journey, to be able to see evidence, not just of somebody's account of what they went through, but how to manage these things with spiritual context, what they can ultimately mean. And so the whole overall story, blended with the knowledge, is to do just that. It was an obligation to some degree to share with people the knowledge that's out there so they can begin to have their own awakening, being able to learn how to use these experiences for their own progress. We're all stuck in this material phenomena, and yet we want something more, whether we know what it is yet or not. And what we're yearning for is a spiritual phenomena, a spiritual bliss. And so the book teaches you in many ways how to do that, how to achieve that, how to interact with it, how to make sense of your life, how to make sense of your life from a spiritual perspective, not just a material one.
I can't wait to check it out myself. And when people ask you, where is it available? Where do you always, I know everybody, there's so many different places to pick up materials these days, but where do you send people?
The print book is on Amazon and probably going to be in Barnes & Noble and other retailers very soon. But right now it's already on Amazon. The audio and ebook versions, the audio is recorded by me with my own inflections. So the audio and ebook versions are available from the website within theportal.com, and those are also available with other retailers as well. And we got some workshops. And you asked me about connecting with the Akashic dimensions regularly. And again, many people, even prior to this, seek me out as a counselor. I worked in a clinical area, but I also worked in a supernatural kind of phenomena as well. And so I'd be providing readings and insights that channel these things. And the readings and insights are very comprehensive. So those are available too. So people can request these and get these as services to get readings and insights into their entire life, into their progress, where they're going, what they want to know. So there's the books, there's the services, there's also the counseling and mentoring.
Is within theportal.com your main website, or do you have one, a more expansive one?
Boy, you're thorough. You already know the answer to this, don't you? So yes, Life-Mind is the clinical website where I have the addiction counseling and other kinds of help. And I'm a little bit more dormant. I'm mostly retired from counseling now. But so we have both websites. And even though life-mind.com, my private practice, was very clinical in many ways, being a spiritualist myself, that's always kind of infused. I wasn't forcing spirituality methods on anybody in my practice, but those who wanted it, they knew where to come. And it certainly is layered into these things. So if you want those layers into your clinical help, it's there too.
Awesome. And do you expand even further into social media if somebody wanted to follow you there?
Yeah, there's a Facebook page again within so I think the YouTube channel has got a lot going on. What we're trying to do is, again, spiritually awaken people. And for those who are waking up and already awake, it can be a very lonely experience. And so what I'm trying to do is help them endure the dark night of the soul, and to help them mature and progress and be able to do it safely. And again, there's a separation, a detachment that takes place within the material phenomena that makes it very difficult to endure these things on your own. So the readings and insights and the website and the community and the other services help people do just that, be able to endure the dark night of the soul and get some bearings and go forward and make progress.
It's inspiring to hear how you use this experience, and not just this experience. I mean, you were on that journey before you had this experience, but how you've used it to help amplify your voice and your message and to help other people out there. It's very inspirational, and we appreciate you, man.
Thank you. It's my honor. I figure one of my own axioms is, and this is in the book, there's only one thing worse than suffering for no reason. We're all going to suffer. The Buddha said life is suffering. Then he laid out the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. We're all going to suffer. If I'm going to suffer, can I convert my suffering to have some purpose? Why not try to inspire and motivate? Look, when I was in the hospital, I didn't want to live. The doctors told me what to expect, and I was like, I'd rather just check out right now.
Right. But
a vision came to me and a voice came to me and said, well, what if you did survive? then you could represent and be an inspiration to many people who could get their way out of darkness. And so that kind of made me want to fight and move on. So again, there's only one thing worse than suffering, that's suffering for no reason. So we're going to suffer. Why not try to convert our suffering into things that might inspire and help people grow and give them tools that they can use to make progress in their own life?
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. We're going to put the links to your websites and your YouTube channel in the description of the podcast here and this YouTube video as well. I cannot thank you enough, Krishnanand. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you for inviting me. You're doing great stuff. Thank you.
Wow. That was an incredible story.
It was. And not only to be on a spiritual journey like he was,
right,
but to hear how something that could have ended his life completely totally expanded his life.
Again, like back to the back cover of his book where it says life can go from light to dark in an instant. It can also go the other way.
That's where this poem is really, really nice, because it is called Endless Possibilities. It's from allpoetry.com. The author is Blue Rose Poet 8488. It's a really nice poem about how there are so many options on the road to life and that there are endless possibilities that are available to us if we only open up our mind and let things happen.
Can't wait to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Jackman interpreting Endless Possibilities by Blue Rose Poet 8488.
On the road of life, there are many possibilities, endless possibilities, to go this way or that way. Only you can decide which way is best, for it is your life to live, not mine. No one can make your best guess. You must make the decisions, for they affect you and only you. You must be the one to see them through. Endless possibilities, endless dimensions of life. Don't let them slip away and swirl into the pitch black of another day. Don't bury them in the deep emotions of the heart. Instead, let them soar to unimagined heights. Up, up and away. See them go, traveling into the wild blue yonder of God's unclouded skies. Oh, the endless possibilities are like beautiful shining diamonds in a field of gems, just waiting to be unearthed. And so are they on the road of life, the traverse possibilities waiting to be crossed, so that you can see all there is to see and do all there is to do. For the possibilities are limitless and just waiting for you to soar to new heights never dreamed, to see new places never seen. Follow your heart, follow your dreams into the realm of endless possibilities.
Craig Jackman and Blue Rose Poet. Wow, that last line just says it all, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm getting chills right now thinking of that last line. And it says so much in just 12 words.
Let's just, you know what? Let's just end the episode on those 12 words. Can you read that last line one more time?
Follow your heart, follow your dreams into the realm of endless possibilities.
I want to welcome our newest Patreon patron, Anna Cronin, to our COVE community on Patreon. Thank you, Anna, and big thanks to everyone who has been over to our Patreon to see all the different ways you can support the production of this podcast. Every subscriber we get helps this show keep going and growing. If you haven't yet, please visit our community at patreon.com/COVE podcast. And join us next week, Tuesday, September 12th. I have the pleasure of introducing you to my friends Ashley Morgan and John Flanagan of the band Fault Lines as they release their brand new single, Me Without You. And don't make me do that without you. Join us. We hope to see you there.
I put the coat on her!